right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Center for the Women of New York podcast. We have Kati, Fernandez here, and Adrienne Whaley. She's the founder of the Queens Underground Film Festivals. Welcome, Adrienne. We're very happy to have you, and I'm so looking forward to hear from you. For those of you who don't know about the Center for the Women of New York empowers and supports women who face financial, housing, food insecurity, violence, social, emotional, or legal problems by understanding their needs and connecting them with the resources they need to overcome their challenges. As our organization focuses on helping women navigate the New York City system that has so many resources, but it's complex, we help them get to the right nonprofit organizations that we partner with, as well as city agencies, to get the help they need. As we answer phone calls and emails and connect with these women, we realize that Black and Brown women have been disproportionately affected by the pandemic. So we are celebrating not only in February, Black History Month, and that's why we have Adrienne here. We do recognize Black History Month, again, not only in February, but always. So welcome. And Kati, I don't know if you have anything to add about the center.
No, we're so honored to be here with you and so grateful for your time, your presence, and the incredible work that you're doing, not just in your community, but across the creative industry. It's much needed. We'd love to hear a little bit more about yourself, if you don't mind introducing yourself from your own voice and telling us a little bit about the current work that you're doing and maybe how you were first discovered this space or got into it.
Well, first I have to say thank you both. And the Center for Women is a wonderful organization. These ladies are absolutely wonderful, and we hit it off from the first time we met. And it is a beautiful space and a much needed service, because we do need more resources, especially for minority women. The other thing that we need are more creative platforms for all people, but definitely minorities and definitely women. I run the Queens Underground. This season, we have different names each season because we do about 4 different ones a year. So right now we are the Queens Underground International Black History Month Film Festival, and our festival takes place in April. So we go through Black History Month, Women's History Month, and then we come outdoors to celebrate. How it got started, I'm a former special education administrator who had worked corporate, who had owned a video store, who raised a child, and one day just woke up and said, I can't do this anymore. I need to go back to doing something creative. My first idea did not work out. Okay, my second idea didn't work out, but I already had a lease. And a group of teenagers came in one day, and it was one young man and one young lady, and they said, can we use your space to do a cipher? I had to pretend I knew what it was. And I'm like, sure, come and do it. And I'm sitting there going, please don't tear my space apart. They came in with the bongo drums. They came in, they did poetry. They did the round tree where one person starts a poem and the next person picks it up. They did dancing. They left, they cleaned up. And I sat there and the space felt different. And I said, wow, so we can do such things. So then we began doing nights of poetry. We had jazz nights, we had hip hop nights, we had R&B nights. We also rented the space out to other groups. The rent was crazy, because then you look at it and you go, you literally have to have an event every single night. And for these events with the younger people, you can't charge more than $10 for the tickets. You're still paying rent, insurance, you're paying staff, you're paying garbage, you're paying everything. But people started coming, and they would come every week, and it kept growing. And eventually we really did outgrow the space. But within all of that, what I can say is there are very few women poets, very few women singers. Then when you get to film, there are barely any. So now that we're doing the film festival and we are going into our 12th film festival in 3 years, I may have 5 women filmmakers out of hundreds. Okay, very few, and let alone we don't have, a lot of female filmmakers in Queens. This is important because when we think about all of the issues that we go through as women, we have stories. We have a whole lot of stories and experiences, and we do carry the weight of the world on our shoulders, right? So it is a beautiful thing to have that creative platform, whether you're a singer, a dancer, a poet, a comedian, or a filmmaker, to be able to tell your story in front of your peers, in front of your community, and then internationally. So we need more of it. So both of us are doing things that are important. So I'm proud of all of us right now.
What you're doing is fascinating. We really love the work that you're doing to uplift Black and Brown artists. And I mean, it's not surprising that women are underrepresented. So we thank you for what you do. And hopefully, we do similar things and we can together come, do something for that, for representation. I love your story. I remember the first time we met, you shared that your parents or your family had a video rental shop, and I just thought that you grew up in your city with that experience, and then you come from a family of artists. I'm sure your family shares some of the challenges that some of these women may be having to enter the field, not only in arts, but everywhere. And can you share some of that story?
Well, actually, the video store was not owned by my family. It was owned by Crazy Me. But before, because I came in just before Blockbuster in Hollywood kicked all of the mom and pop shops out. My timing wasn't necessarily the best. But when you go back to my past, I think one of my biggest inspirations was my mother was among the first Black female police officers in New York City. So I think that and she became a detective. And then she worked for the Manhattan DA's office for 30 something years. She was with Morgenthau. So as I heard you say that, it made me realize who inspired me. Because you're sitting there, back in the 60s, watching. Back then, police women wore skirts. There was a separate police academy. They did not go out on the street like the men did. And then my mother is light skinned. So she was able to get those, not cushy, don't let me say that. She got those great, it really was cushy, but she got those great undercover assignments because they needed to send minorities up into Harlem for the numbers and all of that stuff. And she most certainly does not look like a police officer. So my father was the artist and the cop. My mother was the cop. So I think looking at that, you watch this woman walking out of the house with a gun and a skirt. It seeps into your subconscious. And throughout New York City, we've had blackouts and riots. She had to go into work at midnight. Okay. And they did not treat minorities very well, let alone women very well in the police department back in the day. So I think looking back, I can see that's where a lot of my strength and determination came from, to do the impossible. And again, as women, we're often doing the impossible, but then there's that next step up of, oh yeah, you really think you can do that? And I always walk around going, yes, I may be crazy in my vision for having a platform that is not only diverse, but has every single genre of creativity possible, because I've seen people do the impossible. I grew up several blocks from where Count Basie lived, which is not too far around the corner from where James Brown, Ella Fitzgerald, Lena Hall, Miles Davis, Billie Holiday, Hank Aaron, Jackie Robinson, Milt Hinton, and a bunch of other folks. So fortunately, I grew up in that environment where it's like, okay, this is tough, but we can still do it. So what you're doing, amplifies exemplifies the same thing. It's tough because I know anytime you're dealing with all of these different city agencies, working special ed, I work with a lot of parents who are on, public assistance, then their kids are in the system and you have to do this, but you still need to do that, but you can't do that unless you do this, and this office didn't get back to you and this piece of paperwork, and you want to go to, we sit there and it's like, oh my goodness. So we do need, platforms for the necessary life sustaining, things. And then we also need for the creative, because if we don't have that creative outlet, I think all of us would have a nervous breakdown.
I would agree with that. I like to tell myself that that's the reason why I do it for a day job as well, Adrienne. So thank you for sharing that answer. I mean, I am so impressed, even right before we started recording this, about your vision for the festival and really putting in the forefront artists, whether it's the underdog artists or first timer to more seasoned professionals, and celebrating their heart and work and stories. Could you tell us a little bit about what it's like to experience one of your festivals and how the artists experience it as well?
Okay, I can. The first one we had was October 2019. That was the first big one. We used to do these little movie nights. So I am not a very social person. I belong to a lot of groups and organizations, but I'm not the one who's out there. Hi, I'm not it. I majored in marketing 100 years ago. That was before social media. So I sat there and said, okay, we're going to try it. We rented a space for 3 days. I just kept putting it out on Instagram and Facebook and all of the other online platforms. And I said, I was ready to, I won't say fail, but I was ready for it not to be successful. To the point where I said the film festival starts at 5. We were in 5, we're still in jeans, putting up backdrops and putting up chairs. There was a line outside of the door. Somebody came to me and they said, there's a line outside. I said, a line outside for what? Okay. I looked, I'm like, oh my God, let them in. People are standing outside. So we're like, excuse me, pardon me, racing around. I said, okay, that's a fluke. Day 2, same thing. We're still walking around in jeans, fixing stuff. Line was outside the door. Day 3, same thing. So I said, okay, I think we're on to something. So when we did the February 2020 at the Jamaica Performing Arts Center, which holds 400 people, yeah, we have 500. So what happened was, it made me realize, because we take movie shorts, full-length features, music, dance, poetry videos, web series, talk show episodes, and small business commercials. We have live performances, and we always have about 10 creative vendors. And a lot of them are artists. We had the main library, we had the Queens Historical Society. We gave out community awards to a bunch of people. And I did all of this in 6 hours with 500 people. Okay.
That's
and
amazing.
when people walked out, I mean, I look at the pictures, everyone was smiling. People came, red carpet. We had 4 different talk shows came to host the red carpet of a film festival no one ever heard of. The police department shut down the street. They stood outside in dress uniform for us. When people left, there was more hug, and I'm not gonna cry. Oh my God, it was a beautiful, beautiful event. So that's how I know what we're doing means something, because we don't have a platform. Most film festivals are very myopic. There's the horror film festival. There's the film festival of shorts. There's the this or the that, or the documentary. But we are the only one that has that many categories, and has the live performances, and gives out awards, and has the vendors. So I feel proud that all the craziness of my artistic creative youth, doing all of the fashion shows and the plays and the poetry and the this and the that, it all kind of made sense as an adult when I had to come up with something that has not been done before. So I feel good, and they feel good, and 9 states flew out to the last one, and it's like, wow. Thank you.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. It sounds like you created this not only for people that come and need to see themselves represented in all these forms of art, but also for artists. It sounds like a family, like you described in your website.
It does, because people still come back. But the other thing I want to mention is a couple of organizations put movies, because there's one is CAMBA. It's the organization that's for the gay and lesbian youth. They submitted a movie short, to the film festival. And one of the directors came, and on the red carpet, she was able to talk about the organization. Hint, 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 hint. That is good for organizations to either put, a short video about the organization or a short movie that represents who they are, because that too goes around the world. And that's how I'm able to help organizations, grow.
You're self-funded, funded a nonprofit film festival competing with some of the biggest festivals in the world, as I said, with massive monetary support. How can we continue to push diversity in terms of Black and Brown filmmakers and opportunities they're getting?
I
And
think
do you
it's,
think
I'm sorry, go
that's
ahead.
okay? I also want to ask you, where do you think we still need to strive and make additional progress? And how do we begin to tackle that work as a collective?
We had a meeting today, and just from what, sometimes you can start something, but not completely understand it until, 2 or 3 years down the line. Then you're able to go deeper and really analyze what the issues are. Honestly, it's marketing. It all comes down to marketing. I did an interview the other night with the NAACP, which is literally 5 blocks from here, with members in my neighborhood. And quite a few said they had never heard of the film festival that is literally happening in their own neighborhood. And I will tell you, my marketing is intense and is daily. So again, and I've had commercials on TV. I think we're the only film festival that had a commercial on New York One and BET, and OWN. It really comes down to the marketing, because your potential customers, you have no idea of where they are at any given second. We don't necessarily know the newspapers that they look at, when and what social media they're using. And because of life itself being hectic, someone could have seen you, but it didn't seep in because, oh yeah, I got to go to the doctor. I have to do this and do that. You see something, but you don't absorb it. So it is about the marketing, doing interviews like this, and each of us spreading the word about each other. But it's marketing, and marketing is expensive. That's the reality.
That is a huge barrier of entry for a lot of festivals, especially like yours, that's so uniquely positioned in helping and uplifting and amplifying the voices of diverse writers and creators. Tell us a little bit about what you think we could do to try to help level that playing field as well.
I think having access to larger platforms, because again, you mentioned, Tribeca is huge. There's a couple of other film festivals in New York City. And one of them, I believe, is run by a Black woman. It's the Hip Hop Film Festival up in Harlem. They do have sponsors. So having sponsors, of course, helps. Having a name, Robert De Niro, I can't compete with that, but he walks in the door going, I am Robert De Niro, I'm doing this. And everyone said, yes, of course you are. So it's looking at, and I'm sure it's the same thing with you, Cecilia. We're looking and going, okay, we have this idea. There is definitely a need for it. The budget is limited. We don't have access to someone famous. How do we do it? The only thing we can do is keep pushing and be very conscious of the quality of what we're producing. People come to the film festival dressed up. This is not a jeans and sneaker thing. It is very important, and I always emphasize red carpet, because again, we need to uplift, and everyone's coming in looking gorgeous, right? Like the Academy Awards. So that sets a tone. So now when people walk away, what we're hoping and what they do is everyone's had a wonderful time, and word of mouth, keeps going. And other than that, it's sitting there and again, networking and hoping that we do run into, like LL Cool J came from this neighborhood. LL Cool J, Q-Tip, 50 Cent, Ja Rule. And I know they've never heard of the film festival either. And I keep throwing it out there because one day they're going to hear about it and one day they will come. And sometimes that's all you need, is just having that famous person, walk through the door, and then word will spread like wildflower because everyone's on their phones.
Absolutely. Adrienne, well, Kati asked you already, like, how can we, bring this work further? And the Center for the Women of New York focuses on working to level playing in the field for women. We know that women of color are particularly impacted as it relates to access. How have you seen that across your own experience and efforts you've led? I know we asked this question, but I would love for you to expand on like the challenges, because you're extremely positive, you're doing amazing work, but I'm sure you had so many challenges, not only marketing and financial.
I think part of it is, one thing I do want to say is, how do we make our platforms bigger? Is by collaborating, because then I'm bringing my people, you're bringing your people, and we have a larger event and everyone starts to network. But in terms of individually, my high school guidance counselor, as you know, I went to the High School of Art and Design. And at the end of the year, you never met the guidance counselor before, but you meet him. And I remember him looking at me and saying, you have two things going against you. You're Black and you're a woman. Find a different career other than the arts. That set me into a tailspin for the next 5 or 6 years. It really did. I wandered around because I didn't know what else to do, because I thought I was going to be a fashion designer. So after going through, that process, and then working all of these different corporate jobs, excuse me, got married and had a baby, not necessarily in that order, but whatever. And then I had a car accident. I was in a car accident and I broke my wrist. So I had a year to sit home and realize that I want a business, and, hoping to lead into something creative. And I've always loved movies, and that seemed like the thing to do at the time. So I would just say, in general, we have to remind each other, as women and minorities, that if you have a dream, hold on to it. You may not be able to do it at that moment. And everything that you're doing along the way, you are learning something. If not for, I was a secretary, I've worked in a factory, I had a job in strawberries, making sure the clothes were buttoned properly, right? I have had some crazy jobs. I worked at a nursing home. I was, a school administrator for a while, but I can look back, and I have 6 degrees, right? I spent 12 years in college, walked out with 5, then went back again recently and got my PhD. So I literally have 6 college degrees. So I had to write a lot of papers, because right now I write a lot of emails. I write all of our texts and everything else. So I say that don't ever let anyone take that dream away from you, and to look at life as a path to going somewhere. Sometimes it may seem like life is a path going nowhere, but if you hold on to a dream and find someone around you, whether you know this person or there's someone on TV to look up to, because there are times where you're going to sit there and go, this is impossible. I can't do this. Oh no. And then if you have the relationships in your life or the children, there's so many things that we go through. But what does it say in the Bible? The faith of a mustard seed. Actually, look, the mustard seed is really, really very, very teeny tiny. So it's hold on, and for us to realize that everything we're going through, we're going to need those parts and pieces and skills and information for the next step. The other thing that you tell me how much time we have, because I'll keep talking. But the other thing we have to learn to do as women is not tear each other down. Because, I had mentioned that when you had sent the questions, and I was like, what can I say and what shouldn't I say? But when you look back, it's not so much now, but my generation, girls were taught to play dolls, because, in school, you're playing in the kitchen, you're doing that. Boys are taught to play on teams. What happens is we as women are taught to compete against one another. Then when you get into the hair, the clothes, and the makeup, and the shoes, and this and that, it's always in competition for the attention of a man to look better than the next woman. So that is a mentality that we really, really have to get rid of. And we have to start nurturing our young children and young women coming up, and then also work backwards for the women of our older generation. The other thing that we as women have difficulty doing is being professional in business. I have seen too many women walk in the door and go, I'm a professional, I'm a boss, I own this, I own that. And the minute you go, well, thank you very much, but I don't think that we'll be able to do business. Da, 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 da. I had a woman tell me that she'll be happy when she sees my business close. She stood in front of my store. Okay. And she's probably a little bit older than I am. And I'm sitting there going, yeah, you're one of those generations. So as we're teaching and giving resources, and as we have creative platforms, our obligation as directors and people in charge is to also impart a little bit of wisdom, not preachy, but we also teach by example. So that goes back to why our film festivals are red carpet, because that also immediately sets a tone of expected behavior. If you came in jeans and sneakers, it's like, okay, this is just whatever. But when you have to put on the high heels and all of that, and you're seeing how everyone is interacting, and you're hearing the speeches, and you're seeing this quality work put on by Black and brown people on the big screen, that's the lesson and the message. When we work, oh my God, the stuff that we can produce is unbelievable. And when we work together, it's just incredible.
I completely agree that that advice to continue to propel the next generation forward while also doing it in excellence and with grace and with tact is so important. So as we come through a closing here, Adrienne, and we're so grateful for your time and the work that you continue to do. Seriously, you have some mega supporters here at the Center for the Women of New York.
And the same thing.
We wanted to wrap with one last question before we send it over to Cecilia to bring us home. Why is it important to continue to celebrate and further the conversation during Black History Month and Women's History Month? And how can we continue to discuss what we all need to continue to do around equity, equity and inclusion in order to make festivals like yours accessible to more people and also amplify that work so that we can continue to get those incredible filmmakers that are sharing their work in the big screens?
Well, that's one reason why we are having our Black History Month Film Festival in April 8th and 9th. So the other thing is there's always a way, sales and marketing and advertising, there's a way to send a message passively. So my message is, as all of our message is, that women need resources and women make history regardless of the month. Black history is made. I have a t-shirt, we make Black history every day. So, and again, we've had 12 film festivals, I do like 3 or 4 a year. And I think starting to leave that month alone, that celebratory month. So sure, keep it, February and March can be those 2 months, but then we celebrate them throughout other months. So then that kind of extends it. So now you're sending the message, Black History Month is February and April. And I think in Canada, they celebrate it in October. I think so. By messing with the calendar, we can actually extend what it is we're doing. And then by collaborating, and then by, different organizations, and then the museum, we all have that, and you have a beautiful, beautiful space. So that's how we keep it going, is we keep the conversation going, we keep messing with the calendar, and we keep pushing it out there.
Thank you so much, Adrienne. Let's mess with the calendar and have a film festival at the Center for the Women of New York building. I hope everyone stays in touch, whoever's listening, and we would love to have you there. And as Kati said, invite some of these women that would love to see themselves represented and have all the artists that are participating in your film festival as role models, and to follow and to inspire them. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. We look forward to partner with you and working together, collaborate, and we'll do great things, as you said. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.